Alrighty then. Are we alive? Yes, looks like we are live. Well then, greetings, salutations to all my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and of course, villainy aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to one of my good old-fashioned live reviews. I'm your host, Lord of Shadows, as always, and here I am too, since we are getting like very close to the overall Peacemaker season 2. What better way, to of course, to kind of await the upcoming season is, of course, talking about the final chapter to the overall arrival, which of course I'm talking about Peacemaker season 1. Like, even though I know that James Gunn mentioned that even though the Peacemaker kind of like belonged in the old DC universe, more precisely the DC extended universe, James Gunn mentioned like a hell of a lot of times. Like, he did mention that, besides the little cameo in the end, everything that is happening in the Peacemaker series or season 1 can also be kind of like, I'm gonna say 100%, but it will be like partially could also be canon to the new DC universe, which in some capacity, I do agree with him. So without any further ado, let's begin, shall we? Now, with of course, with the overall, I just want to say, with the overall success of the Suicide Squad, I'll be honest with you guys, like Peacemaker is one of those characters I never thought I will ever gonna see anybody make like a TV show about him. I thought like that the Peacemaker, just from the Suicide Squad movie, you thought like okay, it's gonna be a one-off thing, with we kind of saw him, his introduction, we kind of liked him throughout the movie, and then basically in the end, like almost all the members of Suicide Squad, if it's like TV shows, animation, or comic wise, he's gonna end up dead. But with that crates in the end, you could kind of see that James Gunn had some plans, high plans with the Peacemaker, and of course, here's his own TV show. And again, I'm even still today, I'm so surprised that it actually happened. But of course, with the final result, this app, this show is literally like James Gunn magic. If I have to put it this way, this TV show is literally one of the best DC TV shows I've ever seen. He had everything in it that was almost perfect for me. So without any further ado, basically, let's begin. So if anyone now, of course, even though the show came out, like for a while, this show is kind of like for a while already out, but I'm gonna try still to be like spoiler free as possible for anyone who didn't see it yet. But overall, the story is very simple. So basically, like I said, the movie starts basically continues the events of the Suicide Squad, where basically Peacemaker's in a hospital, trying to recuperate and everything. And of course, he is recruited by the gang controlled by Clemson Mern, under Amanda Waller to kind of like, help them to save the world one more time with something called the Project Butterfly. And that's basically overall the premise of the show, But even though with just the premise, the story overall was kind of like, interesting, even though I only had like one issue with it, but everything about it, the story, it was actually a pretty solid one, like action packed, typical, like very like superhero story, like with comedy and serious moments and like emotional moments. Like he basically was the whole package, And even though there was some, and even though of course James Gunn, of course he wrote all the 8 episodes of Peacemaker, and in season 2 he was also going to write all of them, as he mentioned it before. But when James Gunn wrote all the episodes throughout the entire story, you can see it is him. From like the character moments, from story wise, when it comes to the overall progression, try to maneuver the overall story, to kind of make it not like try to make it as not like predictable as possible, to make it like basically so powerful that anyone will basically go like, oh, I did not see that coming. Oh my god, blow my, we're gonna basically, it blew my mind. So surprising and everything, like which of course that's the beauty of James Gunn, like always trying to like maneuver the story, of course, try to surprise his viewers and everything, and of course when it comes to theories and everything, try to make it as incorrect as possible. That's the overall, with James Gunn. But either way, the story, with all the jokes aside and everything, like the story was, again, very very well written. With all sorts of like twists and turns and revelations. Like I said, with lots of action, lots of humor, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Every single character had their moments, from like the main ones to the like supporting ones. And again, all the way till the end, none of the parts of the story for me felt like overstuffed or like with like some like plot hole elements in it. Like everything basically was completed in almost like a perfect way possible when it comes to story wise. Now, one of the other things I do have to talk about is the intro. Now, usually when it comes to like TV shows, the intros are very generic. But of course, when we are talking about James Gunn, himself, of course, his intros are going to be bombastic and as iconic as possible. And you cannot get iconic as this when it comes to Peacemaker season 1. Oh my God, that intro! I mean, usually when you watch a show, especially on a streaming service, usually kind of gives you the little link on the right corner, basically kind of saying like, you want to skip the intro, and kind of, basically go directly into the episode. But this intro is one of those that like, fuck that skip thing. I'm going to watch this intro all the way till the end. Jesus. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, it still surprised me even still today. Like when I rewatch Peacemaker season 1, the way how this intro was done with like, with the music of a band that was supposed to like, broken up and everything. And basically they were brought to their former glory, thankfully, throughout this intro. Like with all the, characters being together, the choreography, and of course, the final act at the end of the intro, like it was just simply mesmerizing. I mean, one of my friends who I watched Peacemaker with, he said, that the intro for him, it was stupid and ridiculous, and every time when we watch an episode, he always tries to skip the intro. But that's the point, like when it comes to James Gunn, of course, you're going to have an intro that is like ridiculous, that is bonkers, but even in that, even if the intro had those elements, it was still well delivered and well made, from like all the characters, from the choreography, from the overall music, like everything about it was just simply amazing. And I cannot wait to see like what this James Gunn is gonna prepare us in Peacemaker season 2, like when it comes to the overall intro, because I remember that James Gunn did say that Peacemaker season 2 is going to have a different intro. It's not gonna be the same one like in season 1. And with what he did with the Peacemaker season 1, I cannot wait to see what he's gonna do for the next intro. But overall, this intro is iconic, and I would even go as far as say is one of the most iconic, epic, ridiculous intros that I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of them. So yeah, I mean, James Gunn, well done, absolutely well done, and everyone who worked on the choreography, like a job well done, really well done. Now, of course, before I go to the main characters, with the other characters, like I just had to talk about the main man himself, because that's what we hear. That's why we're here. We talk about Peacemaker himself, John Cena. Now, we all basically liked him in the Suicide Squad, but Peacemaker, this TV show, is where John Cena proved his acting abilities. What he did with his character in this particular, season 1, there's no wonder why Peacemaker became iconic. Not simply throughout movies and TV shows, but like even like in comic books, in general. Like John Cena, the way he brought this character to life. Oh my God! Like because in this particular season 1, got, a lot more information about his character. We saw him interact with all the members, of the team. We interacted with his father, with Vigilante, which sometimes he was a little bit annoying, but still, and also at the same time, we also find out a little bit more about him when it comes to, his origin story, how it all started, from like, the death of his brother, all the way, all the way, how he became Peacemaker and everything. It was just simply really well done, And again, even though his origin story in the actual comic book series, it is a little bit different, than what James Gunn did, but still, like, even though of course with James Gunn, written it a little bit different, the elements of the main core of, like, Peacemaker's origin are still there, but and again, John Cena, like, seeing him, in when it comes to, comedic timing, serious moments, dramatic moments, emotional moments, like, he embodied all of them, throughout the character of Peacemaker. Like, he was absolutely amazing in this one, in this role. I mean, to be fair, like, I liked John Cena in most of the movies I've seen him, like, for example, from Vacation Friends to, like, Blockers to the two Christmas comedy movies with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. I liked him. I liked him there. I liked him in Bumblebee. Even in the Fast and Furious movies, I liked him. But Peacemaker for me was is definitely my number one favorite role that John Cena did. Like, within this one, he really proved himself to be a great actor. And Peacemaker is one of those characters that he was born to play. And I cannot wait to see more of him in the future. Now, besides, of course, John Cena, there were, like, all other different characters throughout this TV show. Like, for example, like, from the Vigilante, from, like, Clemson Murren's gang, from, like, his father, the White Dragon, Judo Master, and of course, Eagly. Oh my God! If you haven't watched Peacemaker season 1 yet, first and foremost, what the fuck you're doing? Second of all, you're gonna love Eagly. Even though at first you think, like, okay, Eagly, okay, this is basically a CGI eagle, but trust me, in this show you're gonna love him. Like, for the relationship that he had with Peacemaker, also, like, sort of like little moments that he has, in the series, for even, like, when it comes to like, certain action scenes, like, there are all sorts of stuff in the show that that Eagly was so. Oh my God, that Eagly was great. Especially, like, there are two moments in the show when it comes to Eagly, that basically involves hugging. Like the very first time, in the beginning of the season, where basically Peacemaker went visiting his father, and he basically reunited with Eagly again, and the way how he hugged him, it was just simply, in the same time, funny, but also, like, emotional a little bit, but the most powerful hug of them all was definitely in the hospital, where basically, like, Peacemaker was with Eagly after he was injured because of the White Dragon. The way how he was talking, like, in a very crazy way, funny way. He was begging, for, like, for Eagly's life, to be spared and everything. And then you see Eagly rising up, and he hugs his buddy. Oh my God! Like, and it was just simply so. It was crazy, but it was so well done. And again, he's just he's just a CGI eagle, but still, the way how they portrayed, let's just put it this way, the Eagly's character in this one, he just simply, absolutely, like, like, who would have thought that the simple CGI eagle could be this iconic, And again, one of the other characters that really make a big impact on me when I was watching season 1 is, of course, Vigilante. And the crazy bonkers relationship he has with Peacemaker. I mean, like, it is absolutely crazy. I mean, the actor they chose for Vigilante was absolutely a choice. And even though I will say this, Vigilante at times he could be annoying and a little, and you kind of get irritated from like, some, like, stupid jokes that he does, or, like, some crazy moments basically. But overall, the way how James Gunn wrote his character, it fits. It actually fits. Although in the comic book series, although in the DC Comics, he is, well, how could I put this? He's not that dumb. Okay, in the comics, he is actually not that. He's actually a little bit more serious in the comics. But besides that, we also have, like I said, Clemson Murren, Amanda Waller's daughter, Emilia Harcourt, John Economos, like every single member of Peacemaker's crew, basically, were great. Because that's one of the things why I love about James Gunn, is that basically, even though the main character is Peacemaker, he always writes his stories. If it's like movie or TV show or animation, he always writes his stories in which, like, every single character can have their moment to shine. Every single character can be explored, and brought into the light. And that's exactly what he does. Every single character on this team had their moments. even like when it comes to Judo Master and White Dragon, like even they had their moments, in the show. Like, each and every one of them didn't feel at all when it comes to undercooked or not used enough, or they were barely in it. Like every single one of them had their like moments in the show. Every single one of them had were constructed in a very strategic and tactical way. Which of course it works. But one of the things I will say this, out of all of them, of the all main characters, so to speak, I was still surprised that James Gunn decided to bring Judo Master in this one, and I was kind of curious which one, because there were in the comics. I know there were like 3 or 4 Judo Masters in the DC comics. So I'm really kind of curious which one did he choose? Like, did he choose the original or someone else after that? Well, I think there were like 3 or 4. I mean, I know one of them was a girl, and I think there were other 3. But anyway, like, I'm really kind of curious which one he chose for that. And of course, I think his name is. Oh, I always forget his name. Oh man, I don't want to like make mistakes. Oh yeah, and I have to say one more thing. Robert Patrick as like Peacemaker's father, aka White Dragon. Oh my God, he was amazing. I mean, of course, we all remember him from projects like Terminator and stuff, But he was like, his acting, it was superb. Like the way how he portrayed this character, you love him because you hate him. Let's put it this way. You love him because you hate him, and that's exactly who the White Dragon is. And again, I was really, and again, I was really surprised the way how James Gunn used the, like of all the villains, especially the one who are like, you kind of put them under the rug, like, that are kind of like, not that well known or forgotten. I was still surprised that out of all of them, he brought in the White Dragon. Out of all of them, and when it comes to the White Dragon's character, he didn't tone him down at all. He kept him, I would say, 95% of the like with the exact same like personality and agenda, and the type of character he was that from the comics. Like, he kept him almost exactly as he was in the comics, and again, not just simply like with James Gunn bringing him in, but like even the way how Robert Patrick portrayed him was absolutely amazing. But overall, again, I can go like to each and every one of them, I can go like step by step, but in general, every single character for me, when it comes to when it comes to the main ones, every single character for me works. None of them felt like I said, abandoned or underused in general speaking. But again, out of all of them, like, of course, the main star is, of course, Peacemaker himself. That's for sure. Now, one of the other things that, of course, that I have to talk about is, of course, the action, humor, emotions, and revelations, which I mentioned at the beginning of my review. Now, the action. This movie is action-packed. Let's not make a big mistake out of it. This movie is action-packed. And the type of action and the violence, if you're, is something that, of course, is something, a style that, James Gunn is not a stranger when it comes to action, and the overall violence. Now, of course, it's not unlike, if some people think like, that didn't watch the show, if you think like, oh, is it like, Invincible level violence? Is it like, Creature Commandos level violence? Well, Invincible, no. But Creature Commandos, it's close. It's a little bit like, it's kind of like close to that level of violence, for sure. But even still, like James Gunn, the way how he does his action scenes and violence, like, it's not simply just, it's not made in a way that is just there. Everything is calculated. The way how he does it. He's just simply amazing. I mean, even though the action scenes in this movie, in this series, they kind of for some people look like a little bit generic. Traditional, nothing special about it, but even still, the overall way how they were constructed, it's just simply a popcorn, super fun time to see, basically. Like from shootouts to the overall like grand battle in the season's finale to some action scenes in the middle, especially like, for example, the fight between Judo Master and Peacemaker, like. Every single action piece for me worked, and it was amazing to see. Now, of course, when it comes to James Gunn, one of the things you're also going to have a taste in this one, if you're familiar with his work, is the humor. Like the humor is all over the place, from some like DC jokes on certain characters to like some references on other like like famous celebrities or fictional characters to like the real life. Like the humor in this is absolutely crazy, and 99% for me worked. Even like like even if like even like for example like if you how can I put this? How can I put this? Yeah. Okay. So basically, the humor, like, some of the jokes will make you laugh hysterically. Some of them will make you laugh like in a medium way, and some of them will make you giggle. But I can assure you, none of them will make you feel like will not make you feel. Will leave you with a serious face, basically. That's the thing I was looking for. It's not like none of the jokes for me fell flat. Every single one of them worked. Like I said, some of them made me giggle, some of them made me laugh hysterically, some of them made me like mid laugh. Some of them kind of give me like a mid laugh and everything. But overall, the humor here worked. With like, I mean, out of all the characters, I mean, again, every single one of them had their moments when it comes to humor. But John Cena as Peacemaker, he is the one who brings in the bigger, like the most gigantic wave of all the humor in the show. Like from like certain jokes, from like certain lines, and like I mean, one of my favorite moments when it comes to humor, one of my favorite moments in Peacemaker is definitely like, for example, when John Economos basically put like his father's fingerprints on a certain like crime that happened. And basically, like Peacemaker was so pissed off at him, like why did he choose his father to take the fall, basically, and everything. And then basically John Cena, aka Peacemaker, he literally like started to name like over 10, 20, 30 people, that what John Economist could use, and the majority of the stuff that he was doing, he was literally like improvising, and it was so hilarious. Also, by the way, every single episode in this in every single episode in season 1 had like some like credit scenes at the end, and every single one of them were solid gold, especially when it comes to comedy wise. Now, but again, the humor is everywhere, but well used. Even the majority of it comes from Peacemaker himself, but but it's definitely like James Gunn's humor. Now, emotions, I will say this: Peacemaker, like as a season 1, like there are some certain like emotional moments in this movie, especially when it comes to like Peacemaker's backstory, to like like certain characters like John Economos, Adebayo's like character, or even like Peacemaker's relationship with Eagly, with like his father. Like they're all like, the emotions are all over the place, and still like well used. Like none of them felt flat. Now, when it comes to like revelations, I mean, they're not too many, but when it comes to revelations wise and twists and turns, like they're for me personally, every single one of them hit the jackpot. Not when it comes to revelations, none of them felt for me personally like predictable, or like you saw it coming like mile away, or like not that surprising, or like well, of all the things you went with that, like no, every single one of them for me personally worked. Now, of course, we all had different tastes, so again, it depends. But overall, when it comes to that, like when it comes inside the story, for me, all of them worked, because that's one of the things that James Gunn does. Like he always tries to maneuver the story in a way that you will not see coming what's coming next. Basically, it's just simply fantastic. Now, one of the things I also have to mention is the references. Like, man, like there are all sorts of references here. Like I said, from like fictional characters to celebrities to some certain DC like DC characters. I mean, like one of the, as an example, I mean, one of the things they mentioned in Peacemaker season 1 is Batmite. Out of all the characters, they mentioned Batmite. I was like, wow, like I have not seen that coming. And also, I mean, Peacemaker defeating Kite Man, who is, by the way, another Batman Rogues Gallery villain who, just like, for example, Polka Dot Man, is treated like a joke because he's literally a super villain who uses kites, And I love that they mentioned. I love that the James Gunn decided to mention him in Peacemaker season 1, and the Peacemaker was the one who stopped him. Like it was absolutely brilliant, But again, out of nowhere. But also at the same time, like for example, you also have like some Superman being mentioned in this, and the way how Peacemaker talked about him. You also have like Aquaman, the Flash. But my favorite part of all the references, my favorite one is about Batman, where basically you have Peacemaker having a conversation with like his father's neighbor. What basically they were talking about, like what it takes to be a superhero, and he was asking like, hey Peacemaker, do you have your rogues gallery of villains? And basically Vigilante says no. Well, maybe you're not a superhero after all. And the way how he snapped and the way he was talking to the neighbor with like, my list of supervillains are 6 feet fucking under, and the way how he was ranting about Batman and his overall like, no kill policy, and like, putting his villains, in prison, and some of them, of course, well, not all of them in once now. Some of them in Blackgate prison, some of them in Arkham Asylum, and then basically, like you said, they break out of prison and then murder more people. Like it was hilarious, but also at the same time brilliantly written. It kind of makes you question, like the overall code that Batman has and everything. Because Peacemaker, in some capacity, he does have a point. I mean, when I saw that scene, I do hope somewhere in the future, I do hope we're gonna see Batman and Peacemaker together. I think I would love to see a scene when those two characters have a conversation of like their views on justice, kill policy, and everything. Like it will be absolutely fantastic if James Gunn someday he actually does that. You know. Also, one of the things I always have to mention, like the CGI in the show is also pretty good. I mean, when it comes to like, for example, when it comes to that scene, when it comes to the barflies, or like the gorilla scene, or like the cow, like the CGI, I have to admit, for the way how James Gunn used it and how it was created, it was actually pretty good, almost clean in some capacity, for some certain things, But also I have to mention the CGI is also pretty good. It wasn't used that much, but when it was time to use the CGI, pretty good, pretty well done. Now, one of the other things I have to talk about, which of course is very typical when it comes to James Gunn. Every movie that James Gunn does is always going to give you a banger of a soundtrack, And Peacemaker season 1 has a really, really like fucking banger of a soundtrack. From the intro, from like the background music, from like certain like singing numbers, like man, like the soundtrack in this movie, like thanks to James Gunn, I basically gathered a lot of new songs. There today are like one of my personal favorites. Like for example, like I said, the intro, or like the Monsters song when basically all the butterflies, decide to attack and everything. Like it was just simply great. Like I just have to mention the soundtrack, because I mean, no wonder when it comes to James Gunn, every time when he does something, he always brings a banger of a soundtrack. And Peacemaker season 1 is also one of them. Now, I will say this. I was like, talking about a lot of things, but the only problem I had with Peacemaker season 1, the only problem I had were the villains, which is literally this, what you see in front of you. The butterflies. This like alien species, they're like in the shape of a butterfly, who came to Earth trying to save their own species because like their planet was unbearable to live on. So basically they chose Earth. They went inside people's bodies and basically take over their minds and everything. And basically throughout that they tried to kind of like conquer the world, so to speak. Because like in the season finale, they kind of like give you an explanation why they're on Earth and what they're doing. But even still, even though okay, pretty cool idea, but honestly, when I the first time I heard about Project Butterfly, I thought like the Peacemaker is gonna fight like maybe like a villain like I went to like from Killer Moth to like Queen Bee, the alien villain Queen Bee, or even Kanya Rowe. When it comes to like Project Butterfly, I thought like maybe he's gonna fight a villain like that. Again like Killer Moth or Queen Bee or Kanya Rowe or even Firefly or something. I never thought that this is basically what he was fighting. Because all the time throughout the entire all the episodes, I was thinking like, okay, like who could be the main villain behind this butterfly thing? I mean, most of the time in my mind came Killer Moth, basically, but and seeing all of this, like I felt like, okay, maybe Killer Moth, kind of like or a villain like, like Queen Bee, maybe like, they create this like, mutated like, like butterflies or something, to kind of like go inside people's minds, try to control them and everything. I don't know. But when you come to the end and when you realize what actually is happening, you're like, really? Like, that's it? I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The butterflies were interesting in Peacemaker season 1. They were interesting. And I really liked the overall conversation where the queen butterfly had, with Peacemaker, when basically the cow was discovered, which is basically this gigantic baby butterfly monster that were holding, basically, that it was this thing basically kind of was producing the food they were drinking, which is very gross, by the way. Every time when I see that scene, oh man, it's very gross and a little bit and a little bit disturbing. But overall, I get it. Like the overall purpose they had, the overall purpose that James Gunn gave them throughout the story was interesting. I like their overall character development that this butterfly has had and everything. But for me personally, they didn't work for me as villains. Okay, they didn't work for me. I mean, if anyone who knows me, like, I'm the villain life. So, and the butterflies, alien people or whatever, they didn't work for me. Honestly, I mean, literally, I was really hoping for Peacemaker to fight like an actual villain. I mean, I would have been even happy if the main villain of the season 1 was actually his father, the White Dragon. Like if they kept him as the main villain overall, if they kind of scrapped the butterfly and we were left with just the White Dragon, I think like when it comes to villain wise, I think it would have been much more interesting than this, because I think like that's the only biggest flaw I have with the series, because literally, we have already a comment. Let's see. In my opinion, this season, FRC as always. In my opinion, this season is just as wacky and crazy than Suicide Squad. It finds originality to set itself apart. Can't wait for season 2. Yeah. I agree with you, FRC. Yeah, absolutely. Like, it is wacky and crazy, and also at the same time, very original, very creative. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And just like you, I cannot wait for season 2. Like I said, the only thing I hope that Peacemaker this time is going to face like an actual villain. Like someone we can go like, face to face, against. Like, I mean, seriously, like I was hoping for like, villains. He was going to fight villains like, the NQU Demon or Bane or Deathstroke or, like I said, Queen Bee or Killer Moth or like, or I don't know, like, what was the one villain called that Peacemaker was fighting? I cannot remember his name. He had like the Japanese. He had the like Japanese flag like costume. Like man, I cannot remember his name. But I felt like literally, or like he's gonna fight other villains like even Prometheus. Like I literally thought like he's gonna fight like those kind of villains. So I'm really hoping that season 2 is gonna have like an actual opponent like that. Because again, I liked him in the story. I like the overall alien / character arc they had in the overall explanation at the end. But as villains, it didn't work for me. That didn't work for me. I thought like I would have much preferred if they kept the White Dragon around, honestly. But anyway, anyway, with that being said, I mean, when it comes to my final thoughts with Peacemaker, overall, I liked it. I absolutely loved season 1. Like, just like FRC said, it is wacky, it is bonkers, but it's also very original, very creative. I really like the story. I loved all the characters. I know they didn't mention them a lot when I was doing this review, but trust me, if I would mention every single one of them, I would have been here for an hour. But every single one of them had their moment to shine. Like I said, from Peacemaker, Vigilante, Adebayo, Clemson Morn, to Emilia Harcourt, to John Economos, Judo Master, White Dragon. Every single one of them worked in this movie. Why am I saying movie all this time? TV show, I mean. None of them were left behind. Love the soundtrack, love the action. The humor was great. For me, like I said, 99% of the time worked. Some of them more, some of them less. But the ones that worked for me less, they still made me giggle. And that's good enough for me. The CGI was great. When it comes to action sequences, one of the things I forgot to mention, one of my favorite action sequences is not simply Peacemaker against the White Dragon, but it was also the gorilla scene. Like that scene was bonkers, but at the same time, really well made. But overall, with all being said, also one of the things I have to praise James Gunn is that the comic accuracy when it comes to costumes, like the Vigilante's costume was like near perfection, comic accurate. I have to talk about that, and of course, Peacemaker, just like in the Suicide Squad, I loved, that he kept his actual costume from the comics, like he did in the Suicide Squad movie. So overall, the show overall was a bang. Like I said, the only problem I had with the show were the villains. That's the only thing I have, So I'm hoping that for season 2, he's gonna bring us like an actual villain for Peacemaker to fight. I'm really hoping it's not gonna be some like another alien invasion of like but instead of like butterflies, like parasites or something. Like no, give Peacemaker like an actual opponent to face. It will work way more better. I know that James Gunn will always try to bring us something new, something out of like out of the blue, something out of the ordinary. But for this, I'm really hoping that he's gonna give us like an actual opponent against Peacemaker. But with all that being said, I love this show, and I will still rewatch it over and over again. And with that being said, which kind of leads me basically to the overall rating of the show. Which when it comes to Peacemaker, I'm giving this show an 8.5 out of 10. The only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 or at least 9.5 is because the villain thing. The villain part is the only thing I was kind of disappointed. Even though I know that there's gonna be some people say, well, but we still had White Dragon and everything. Yes, I know, but like we only had him like in costume. I mean, for only like one episode. And even though I loved Robert Patrick's portrayal of the White Dragon, like again, if they kept him as the villain, I think like it would have been much more better. But overall, still 8.5 out of 10 is also still a great rating for me personally. And with that, I cannot wait to see what's going to happen with season 2. I really cannot wait. I know that, just like with this one, I know that James Gunn is going to bring us a banger of a season 2. I believe in James Gunn, just like I do believe in him when it comes to Superman. And with that being said, we have come to an end to another live review. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, as always. And when it comes to that, you guys know the drill. When it comes to like, commenting, liking, subscribing, give me your personal thoughts. If you have already watched Peacemaker season 1, what did you thought about Peacemaker? What did you thought about Vigilante? What did you thought about all the characters, the villains, story-wise, everything about Peacemaker season 1 in general, or what do you wish to see in season 2? In the comment section down below, please. And as always, stay tuned for more. And until then, Lord of Shadows signing off. Or, as I like to say it, as always, later, fuckers.